All right, so we are going to talk about population and predictions or inferences we could make using that population. So you're going to do that using this proportion, okay? So here we have a proportion. This will be, you're going to want to kind of remember this proportion a little bit, but the worksheet will have you do, will have this proportion written. So it's um, really what we're doing is estimating that population size for most of the time. So that's generally going to be what you're finding. You're going to be given some sentences about, in this case, for most of these, we're going to do animal population size estimation. So we'll have the number of tagged animals that were also counted. We count just a group of animals and the number of animals that we tagged originally. So we'll talk about that in like a second because that'll make some more sense. So let's read through the first scenario here. Scientists in the jungle want to find the best estimate for the lion population. Okay, they tagged and released. So they tagged and released 20 lions. Later, they found 160 lions, 8 of which were tagged. And then we want to find the best estimate. Okay, so kind of piecing back together this proportion, right? So they tagged and released. So tagged and released is total number tagged and released, right? Um, Found 160 lions. Found is another way to say we counted 160 lions. 8 of those 160, so 8 of the counted were tagged. What's the population size? Okay, so just to kind of color code it a little bit there, so it makes a little bit more sense, right? So we have our proportion. So we have tagged, counted. We have 8 were tagged and counted. 160 were found. We tagged and released 20. And what's the best estimate? So here's our proportion. So now we're going to solve our proportion. Remember how to solve a proportion? You cross multiply. So we do 8 times x, which will be 8x. And then we do 160 times 20. So do 160 times 20 in your calculator. 160 times 20 is 3,200. And then we solve that, right? We solve it like an equation. So we divide by 8. So do 3,200 divided by 8. Do 3,200 divided by 8. That gives us 400, right? So it's not enough to just write 400. 400 what? 400 scientists, 400 jungles, 400 what? So 400 lions is our estimated answer, right? We're going to do another one together. Okay, so farmers have 450 cows in total. So we know their population size, 450 cows. One day, they counted 150 cows. 15 of those cows had marks. So we want to find how the population that is marked. So how many of their total cows have marks or tags on them? So let's set up our proportion. So we know 450 cows in total. That's our total population size, 450. We counted 150, so we counted 150. 15 of those we counted had marks. And we want to find the population size. So we want to find the X. Okay. So again, we cross multiply 150 times X, 15 times 450. So 150 times X is 150X. So I want you to now do in your calculator 15 times 450. 15 times 450. And you should get 6,750. Take that answer. And now we're going to divide both sides by 150. So do 6,750 divided by 150. And when you do that, you should get 45. 45 what? 45 marked cows. Right? Because they're not just cows, that's how many are marked was the question. Right? Okay. I'm going to ask you to try number 3 on your own. So I want you to pause the video and try number 3 on your own, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so pause and try number 3 for me. All right, so just verify that you highlighted the stuff in the right order and that you set up your proportion the same way I did. Okay, so did you set your proportion up like this? If you did, then you're good. If not, fix your proportion and retry the problem. Okay? Okay, pause the video again. All right, so now that you fixed your proportion, check your answer. You should have gotten 234 blue sharks. If that doesn't make sense, check my work. Ask me questions in class. All that fun jazz. All right, let's look at the last question. So instead of talking about animals, this one's talking about students. So Jared randomly surveyed some students to determine their lunch habits. The results are shown on the table. There are 268 students in the school. So that's our total. Predict how many bring their lunch from home. So what that's asking us is that's going to be our tagged counted, right? Because we've surveyed them. So survey is like marking them. And no, we want to figure out our total marked. Yeah. So how many kids bring lunch from home? Okay. So we have to figure out, it's going to be like a new proportion. That's kind of what we're thinking. So think of number in survey, total surveyed, equals X over total population. Okay, so that's going to be our new proportion. So kind of the same, right? Okay, so let's fill these numbers in. So we know that there's a total of 268 students in the school. You know that I want this to be my x because that's how many of the school people bring their lunches. So that's why that's x. Thinking about just their survey, how many bring lunch from home in the survey? Well, 19 people. But now we need the total surveyed. We don't have that number, so add these all up. What is 19 plus 27 plus 4? So we want to add up the total surveyed, so we want to do 19 plus 27 plus 4. And when you do that, you should get 50. So now we have our proportion. So now we can solve that. Cross multiply. 50 times x is 50x. 19 times 268. So figure out what 19 times 268 is. When you do that in a calculator, you should get 5,092. And then we're going to, solve. Divide both sides by 50. We get, did you get 101.84? Well, can I have 0.84 of a person? No, so we're going to have to round. So predict how many students bring their lunch from home. I'm going to say about, would you round up to 102 or would you round down to 101? Well, because it says predict, I'm going to round up. If it wanted like an exact answer, I would round down to 101. But since it says predict, and this 8 is over 0.5, we're going to round up then. It's about 102 students bring lunch from home. That's a lot. So about 102. My handwriting's terrible. So about 102 students bring lunch from home. Okay, so, and that's it. Perfect.